making millions of dollars, do it for the carrots.
I did it for love and lip syncing and things like that.
Susan Dey once seemed to have the life millions dreamed about. Fame came fast. The Partridge Family made her a household name, and later roles proved Hollywood had badly underestimated her. But behind that calm smile was a woman carrying far more than fans knew. Fame brought pressure. Love brought heartbreak. Private battles followed her into adulthood, and some wounds became public in ways she never wanted. Then, just as she earned real respect, Susan began pulling back. Fewer roles, fewer interviews, less access. Today, she lives far from the noise that once surrounded her, and the reasons are more complicated than they seem. Join us as we uncover the fame, heartbreak, health struggles, betrayals, and painful choices behind Susan Dey's disappearance from the spotlight. The childhood loss she never truly left behind. Susan Halleck Dey entered the world on December 10, 1952, in Pekin, Illinois. Even her birth made the local paper. The Pekin Daily Times ran a small announcement under the playful headline, "Another Day Today," noting that a 6-pound, 4-ounce baby girl had been born to Robert and Ruth Dey. Her father worked in journalism and later built a long career as a reporter and editor. Her mother, Ruth, was a trained nurse. For Susan's first years, life looked ordinary and secure. There were school days, family routines, and the steady presence of 2 parents. The family did not stay in Pekin for long. Robert later took work in Westchester, New York, and Susan spent part of her childhood in that state. She attended Columbus Elementary School in Thornwood and later moved to Mount Kisco. But the biggest change came before high school. In 1961, when Susan was only 8, her mother died. That loss sits at the center of nearly every account of her early life. One description of those years says the family home suddenly felt too quiet, and Susan responded by becoming quieter herself. She was still a child, too young to fully understand death, yet old enough to feel the space her mother had left behind. Some people later remembered her as polite, delicate, and distant. One account pictured her spending long periods near windows, watching strangers outside and sketching people she would never meet. Whether every detail of those memories can be proved or not, the larger pattern is clear from the story she later told about missing her mother. The loss never became a small thing. Robert eventually remarried Gail Schellenberger, and the household gained structure again. Susan continued school, eventually attending Fox Lane High School. Yet she was growing into a young woman who seemed far more comfortable holding feelings in than putting them on display. That quiet nature would soon become strangely useful. Soon, one simple photograph would turn the same stillness that may have helped her survive grief into an opportunity no one had predicted. One picture opened a dangerous door. The next turn came through Gail. In 1968, when Susan was 15, Gail sent a photograph of her to a New York modeling agency. Susan had not grown up talking about fame as some grand dream. She seemed to want belonging and stability more than applause. Still, the camera responded to her immediately. She had bright blue eyes, long, center-parted hair, and a calm look that felt both beautiful and approachable. Modeling work followed. Agencies liked the quiet, controlled confidence in her photographs because it never seemed loud, forced, or false. Her photographs appeared in teen fashion material, and one early break was unusually direct. She appeared on the cover of a Perset's booklet for young girls called Getting to Know Yourself, a guide connected to first facts about menstruation. It was not glamorous, but it placed her face before a young audience. Susan also appeared in teen magazines and fashion work. Former classmates remembered a girl who avoided gossip, spoke little, and sometimes ate alone. Modeling gave her routine, but there is no sign it erased the pain she carried from childhood. In fact, the work may have created a new problem. Her looks were now becoming a kind of currency. Approval came when the photograph worked, when the body looked right, and when the expression stayed controlled. One account sums up that period with a hard idea. She was learning to exchange her image for acceptance. Then one glossy photograph reportedly found its way to people connected with ABC around 1970. The network needed a young actress who could seem wholesome to parents and appealing to teenagers. Susan fit that balance. She had no formal acting training, no serious screen experience, and little reason to believe she was about to become one of television's most familiar young faces. Yet during the audition, producers were struck by what she did not do. She did not push. She did not perform too loudly. She seemed naturally present. After graduating from Fox Lane High School in 1970, Susan won the role of Laurie Partridge at 17. The job looked miraculous, but it also brought pressure she could not yet understand. America fell in love before Susan was ready. The Partridge Family premiered on ABC in September 1970, and Susan stepped straight from modeling into a world she had never known. Almost overnight, the quiet teenager was working inside a major network sitcom. The series followed a widowed mother and her children as they formed a pop group and traveled in a brightly painted old-school bus. Shirley Jones played the mother, Shirley Partridge. David Cassidy played Keith. Susan played Laurie. Danny Bonaduce played Danny, and Dave Madden was manager Reuben Kincaid. The family was loosely inspired by the Cowsills. In the pilot, the children persuade their mother to sing on a song recorded in the garage. Their clever younger brother helps them find a manager. The record becomes a top 40 hit, and the family soon heads toward Las Vegas for a first live job at Caesar's Palace. Later episodes mixed suburban problems with a family's show business life. Laurie played keyboards, piano, Hammond organ, percussion, and sang harmony within the fictional group. Her real musical contribution was not the point. Her value was the way she made Laurie feel believable. She looked like the dependable daughter, the calm sister, and the girl many young viewers wanted as a friend. The timing suited ABC. The country had been shaken by war, conflict, and political distrust. The show offered something warm, simple, and reassuring. Its message was right there in the famous theme, "Come on, get happy." The response was immediate. The fictional family also produced real hit records, including "I Think I Love You," the biggest hit song of 1970 in the United States, according to accounts from that period. Albums sold, fan clubs grew, and teen magazines pushed the cast into homes far beyond the weekly broadcast. Susan became part of a clear look that young girls copied: long hair, modest clothes, a gentle smile, and an image of controlled innocence. Publicists compared her elegance to Audrey Hepburn and her poise to Grace Kelly. That sounded flattering, but it also narrowed the space around her. America was no longer simply watching Susan Dey act. It was turning her into a symbol of perfection, and symbols are rarely allowed to have bad days. The hidden battle fame made worse. Behind the bright bus and cheerful songs, the work could be exhausting. One account describes 16-hour days, 5 days a week. The network wanted more episodes. The records kept selling. Reporters followed the young cast, and fans expected the same warm faces they saw on television. Susan's fame grew so quickly that ordinary life became harder. She reportedly could not eat quietly in restaurants or walk down a street without attention. The public saw Laurie. Susan sometimes felt they were looking through her rather than at her. She later described the strange problem of young stardom to the Washington Post in simple terms. "You feel like an adult, but you are not an adult." That gap mattered. She had adult work demands and adult public attention, but she was still learning who she was. The pressure soon reached her body. Susan later confirmed that she developed an eating disorder during the Partridge Family years. Accounts of the period describe constant pressure to stay thin and camera-ready. One harsh version of that world reduces her meals to celery, carrots, and fear. Another claims she fell to around 90 pounds. Shirley Jones was said to have worried about how young and fragile she seemed, while so many people wanted something from her. At the time, the full depth of that battle was not something viewers could see. The glossy photographs kept coming, while the fear around food and appearance followed her behind the scenes. Years later, Susan would finally explain how long that struggle lasted. Before acting, modeling had already taught her to think closely about appearance. Now television turned that pressure into a national spotlight. A close friend was said to have seen private notebooks from the period containing 2 repeated words: "Be enough." Whether that small detail came from every page or only a memory, it captures the larger struggle. Susan was being praised by millions while fighting the fear that she might still not be enough. And as the show moved forward, another emotional risk was growing beside her on the set: the co-star who broke her heart. On screen, Susan and David Cassidy played brother and sister. Off-screen, they became close friends as the country watched them grow famous. Susan was around 18, David was around 20. They talked, joked, and spent time together between scenes. One set memory describes them sitting close, laughing quietly, with Susan looking at him with trust. For her, he seems to have felt safe inside a world that changed too fast. But David was living through another kind of madness. Screaming fans followed him, touring pulled him away, and sexual attention surrounded him. Susan's feelings moved in another direction. Over time, she fell for him and wanted to know whether he felt the same. According to later accounts, Susan eventually reached the painful point of wanting to know whether he could return those feelings. David did not see the relationship the same way. Shirley Jones later said he did not return Susan's feelings, did not treat her well during that period, and broke her heart. Still, the set was not always heavy. Danny Bonaduce remembered Susan showing a sharp, funny side when he pushed everyone too far. In a May 2025 podcast appearance, he recalled acting badly during a breakfast table scene when Susan suddenly poured a gallon of milk over his head. He first thought the move was affectionate. It was not. Shirley Jones later wrote that the cast had encouraged Susan to do it because Danny was getting too big for his boots. Bonaduce admitted the moment was improvised and said he had been an extraordinarily ill-mannered young man. The prank showed that Susan could push back when she had enough. That private story would return later. First, Susan had to face what happened when the show that made her famous finally ended. Hollywood would not let Lori go. Susan's first years of fame were not limited to the sitcom. In 1972, while the Partridge Family was still running, she made her film debut in Skyjacked, an airline hijack movie starring Charlton Heston. The weekly series continued until March 1974, ending after 4 seasons and 96 episodes. Susan briefly returned to Lori Partridge in the Hanna-Barbera cartoon Partridge Family 2200 AD, but her involvement was limited and Sherry Alberoni later replaced her. The animated idea pushed the family into the future and grew from earlier guest appearances on Goober and the Ghost Chasers. Shirley Jones and David Cassidy did not voice their cartoon characters, while Susan and Dave Madden had only small involvement. Once the live series ended, Susan faced the problem that follows many young stars. Everyone knew her, but they knew one version of her. Hollywood still saw the long-haired girl next door. She needed to prove that she could carry darker, more adult work. In 1977, she returned to weekly network television in the short-lived sitcom Loves Me, Loves Me Not. The same year brought several different parts. In the television movie Mary Jane Harper Cried Last Night, she played a deeply troubled young mother whose psychological problems begin harming her toddler daughter. She starred opposite William Catt in First Love, directed by Joan Darling, and appeared in the Barnaby Jones episode Testament of Power. In 1978, she took another important step by playing Jo March in a Little Women television miniseries. Eve Plum, famous as Jan Brady, played Beth, making the production a striking meeting of two women strongly linked to 1970s family television. Susan was showing that she could move beyond Lori. Her personal life was changing too. She married Lenny Hershen, and in 1978 they had a daughter. Motherhood gave her a private role far removed from public expectations, but the marriage did not become her lasting partnership. What remained constant was the career problem. She had escaped the Partridge bus, yet the image stayed attached to her name. The next decade would test whether she could truly make Hollywood see an adult woman instead of a teenage memory. Hollywood still saw the teenage girl. By the early 1980s, the Partridge Family had been gone for years, but Susan still carried its shadow. Casting people could remember Lori faster than they could imagine a new character. She had become famous for a person she no longer was. Instead of chasing every offer, she gradually became more selective. Her film work continued. In 1981, she co-starred with Albert Finney in Looker, a science fiction thriller written and directed by Michael Crichton. The movie did not erase it, nor did her other film roles make her a major movie star. She later appeared in the primetime soap Emerald Point NAS from 1983 to 1984. In 1986, she led Echo Park as a struggling waitress and actress who takes work as a stripper delivering singing telegrams. It was another clear move away from Lori Partridge, but the great second act had still not arrived. That changed the same year. Producers Stephen Bocco and Terry Louise Fisher were creating L.A. Law for NBC, a legal drama built around the partners, associates, and staff of a Los Angeles firm. The series mixed legal battles with personal conflict and wanted lawyers who felt human, flawed, and believable. rather than polished television symbols. Susan was cast as Grace Van Owen, first a Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney and later a judge and partner. Everything about Grace challenged the old Laurie image. She was intelligent, controlled, serious, moral, and powerful. This woman did not exist to smile beside a pop group. She made decisions that affected lives. Susan also looked different, trading the long brunette style tied to her youth for a blonde bob. The role gave her something she had spent more than a decade seeking, a chance to be judged as an actress in the present, not as a teenager preserved in reruns. L.A. Law's 2-hour pilot aired on September 15, 1986. The show initially struggled on Friday nights, then moved into NBC's prized Thursday schedule. Soon, Susan was standing at the center of one of television's most respected dramas, and the industry that had underestimated her had to look again. The role that rewrote her entire career. L.A. Law became a major success. It ranked in the Nielsen Top 30 for its first 6 seasons and eventually won 15 Emmy Awards, including 4 for Outstanding Drama Series. Its large cast gave Susan room to work beside strong performers. Grace could be glamorous, but that was not her main purpose. She had real authority of her own. She argued cases, faced moral choices, and later became a judge. Susan appeared from 1986 through 1992, covering the first 6 seasons, and her work finally broke the idea that she was only a former teen idol. The awards followed quickly. She won a Golden Globe for the role and was nominated again in each of the next 4 years, as award records then showed. She also received Emmy nominations for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series in 1987, 1988, and 1989. During the 1988-1989 season alone, 9 regular cast members were nominated for acting Emmys, including Susan. That level of recognition mattered because she had entered television at 17 with no acting experience. Now she was measured against primetime's best dramatic performers. The show's bold subjects also made Grace more important. L.A. Law dealt with capital punishment, abortion, racism, homophobia, sexual harassment, HIV/AIDS, and domestic violence. In that world, Grace was allowed to be more than a love interest. One account says Susan resisted a romantic direction for the character because she did not want Grace defined mainly by whom she loved. The story was reportedly changed. Whether that battle happened exactly as later retellings describe it, the larger point fits the role Susan was playing. Grace had authority, beliefs, and consequences of her own. The series went on to win GLAAD's first media award for Outstanding Drama Series in 1990, with Heartbeat, and continued pushing social boundaries into the early 1990s. For Susan, the bigger victory was personal. She had spent years being sold as an image. Now she was playing a woman whose mind mattered. Yet even at this career peak, private struggles had not vanished. Success had changed her status, not erased what fame had done to her. Fame could not save her from herself. During those same L.A. Law years, Susan's personal life entered a more stable chapter. In 1988, she married television producer Bernard Safransky. This relationship was presented as very different from the loud world around her. Friends said he did not try to reshape her and let her be herself. Their life became quieter, with dinners at home, gardening, shopping, and walks. That hard-won privacy mattered because problems from her younger years had not vanished. The eating disorder that began during the Partridge Family still followed her into adulthood, and Susan's later words would show just how long the battle lasted. There was another private struggle as well. The media revealed that Susan attended Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. She saw that exposure as a serious invasion. Speaking to Parade, she said, "I usually don't talk about it because I feel it's my business and nobody else's." She explained that after she had been sober for a year, she received a cake at an AA meeting. Then tabloids published a story about it. Susan was furious because she believed an informant had been planted inside the group. For someone who had spent years protecting herself by saying little, this was more than unwanted gossip. A recovery space she expected to be private had become material for strangers. It helps explain why her later silence should not be confused with simple shyness. She had seen personal pain turned into entertainment. Even during her strongest professional years, she chose words carefully and revealed very little. The public could watch Grace Van Owen every week, but access to Susan herself became harder. She had fame, awards, a second marriage, and professional respect. She also had old wounds, a long fight with anorexia, sobriety, and fresh proof that the press might enter spaces she considered sacred. Then, as her biggest television comeback neared its end, an old relationship was about to test those hard-won boundaries all over again. Then David Cassidy reopened the wound. By 1990, Susan and David Cassidy could still appear together warmly in public. At the MTV Video Music Awards, they were all smiles, suggesting that whatever pain remained from their younger years had not completely destroyed the bond. Professionally, Susan was also nearing a turning point. She left LA Law in 1992 after 6 seasons and 126 episodes, a longer run for Susan than her years on the Partridge Family. Grace had finally established her as a respected dramatic actress. Susan later said she left when she felt there were no new surprises. That choice revealed how differently she was starting to view success. Hollywood rewards people for staying visible as long as possible. Susan seemed more interested in knowing when the work had stopped giving her something new. She moved into Love and War from 1992 to 1993 and continued with television movies and selected roles. In 1993, Susan told The Inquirer, "I'm not in the clear yet. I'm still trying to overcome my anorexia." She said the disorder had plagued her life and stressed that severe eating problems could not be beaten alone. Then, in 1994, the past returned in a way she had not chosen. David published Come On, Get Happy, Fear and Loathing on the Partridge Family Bus. In it, he wrote openly about Susan's feelings for him and their private, intimate history. To him, it may have been part of his own story. To Susan, later accounts suggest something deeply personal had been exposed. She declined to comment. In 1995, she was working on a movie when much of the Partridge Family cast appeared on Danny Bonaduce's talk show, Danny. Susan did not appear in person, but she called in briefly to reminisce. That made the next development even more striking. In a 2000 interview with Deseret News television critic Scott Pierce, David acknowledged that his memoir had caused lasting damage. He said he had sent Susan an apology letter, yet the break appeared permanent. Susan did not answer with a rival memoir or public attack. Her distance from Partridge Family nostalgia also became more noticeable, but she was not completely absent. She chose limited contact instead of a full public return. She simply became harder to reach. And soon, that same need for control would begin reshaping the rest of her career. The star who quietly closed the door. By the middle and late 1990s, Susan still had opportunities, but her career no longer seemed built around being seen at any cost. She continued with selected television work and movies, yet the pace slowed. Susan was no longer chasing visibility simply because Hollywood offered it. After years of being watched, judged, photographed, and discussed, she was becoming more careful about what deserved her time. That made her return as Grace Van Owen in LA Law. The movie in 2002 feel important. She stepped back into the role that had transformed her career, but it did not begin a full comeback. 2 years later, she appeared in 2 episodes of the NBC crime drama Third Watch. Those 2004 appearances became her final professional acting credits in later accounts. There was no grand farewell tour and no dramatic retirement announcement. Susan simply stopped taking new roles. By then, she had spent more than 3 decades inside an industry that had followed her from teenage fame to adult acclaim. She had survived typecasting, serious health struggles, tabloid intrusion, and the public exposure of a private relationship. Yet walking away did not make her younger image disappear. The Partridge Family kept returning in reruns through cable and later digital channels. New viewers could still meet 17-year-old Lori long after Susan herself had stepped away. That contrast became one of the strangest parts of her story. The real woman was choosing less access while her younger face remained endlessly available. Shirley Jones later expressed disappointment that Susan would not fully join Partridge Family reunions, but Susan stayed firm. She had made limited contact over the years, yet she clearly did not want nostalgia to control her life. The choice made more sense when placed beside everything that had happened. She had learned how quickly affection could turn into ownership and how easily private pain could become public material. After 2004, silence was no longer something forced on the grieving 8-year-old girl. It had become a decision. This time, she controlled the terms. And away from Hollywood, she was about to prove just how seriously she meant it. The life Susan Dey refuses to share. Susan's life after Hollywood became deliberately private. Later accounts say she and Bernard had lived in Andes, New York since 2007, far from the entertainment machine. In a rare 2013 interview, Susan spoke about helping organize a local battle of the bands to support community musicians. She seemed happy to encourage creativity without standing at its center, but leaving acting did not mean she stopped loving it. "I miss acting as much as I miss my mom, as much as I miss my little girl, as much as I miss my first home," she admitted. Still, she said her life was full and suggested she would only consider returning for the perfect role. Then David Cassidy's death from liver failure in 2017 brought their painful history back into public conversation. One account says Susan spent time with his family remembering him, supported by a message from his nephew Jack. Yet she gave no major public tribute or emotional interview. She did not turn his death into a public performance. In 2020, Susan joined several LA Law cast members, including Harry Hamlin, Jimmy Smits, Corbin Burnson, Alan Rachins, Michelle Green, and Blair Underwood for a Stars in the House reunion raising money for the Actors Fund. It was a rare reminder that she had not erased every part of her career. She had simply stopped letting the public decide how much of her life it could have. Later reports still describe her world as quiet and family-centered, with most details kept outside public view. Susan remains rarely seen and gives the public very little access to her daily life. Even after decades of fame, she appears determined to keep that quieter world on her own terms, far from the constant attention that once followed her everywhere. Do you think Susan Dey stepped away because Hollywood had already taken too much from her? Or did she simply find the peace fame could never give her? And if the perfect role came along today, would you want to see her return? Or should she leave the spotlight exactly where she chose to? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.